Before we start, somebody wants to say hello. Hi. Oh. Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I'm here to talk to you about the books that I managed to read during the month of July.
It's coffee time.
So July ended up being a better month than I had anticipated, and I did manage to read quite a few books. I think in total it was around 11 things that I read, but that is also because I listened to 2 audiobooks, which has been a lifesaver. So I think in total it was around 11, and I didn't absolutely love everything, but I did have a good time with these books. Part of the books that I chose were because they fit for a readathon that I was hosting over at my Patreon during the month of July, and not all of them hit the spot. But I'm here to talk to you about them. If you're new here, welcome to our coffee times. We rate here our books with coffee mugs, and I always start with the lowest rating, so we always end up on a positive note. The Island by Sarah Brooke. I chose this one because I already had this book on my Kindle and it fit the premises for the readathon. And the thing is with this one is I knew it had not the best reviews on Goodreads, but I still went into it with an open mind. We are in Death Island, and this island was closed for a reason. Now it's ready to reopen the doors for the tourists, and they have like new hotel and new everything so that they can start profiting again from tourism. And there are 3 couples that come to the island. They have been selected to be the first ones to enjoy the island and the hotel. When these 3 couples are on their way to the island and you're getting introduced to them, that's when I already was having issues with the book, because all 3 couples are like not working. These people should not be together. It felt like very forced, like the author wanted all 3 couples to have issues so big that they will be fighting the whole time, they will be split in the island the whole time. It didn't make them likable characters at all. They were confusing at times. So I think one of the biggest issues with this book was the characters more than the story or the horror per se. Some of the comments of these couples were either outdated or stereotypical, and like I said, I think my biggest issue here were the characters, because once we are in the island, even though they still keep fighting and it's BS, you get a little bit more introduced to the background of the island and why is it supposed to be cursed. And I did like that part, like to learn a little bit more about the island and about this curse that this woman that was considered a witch put on the island, and that's the reason why they haven't had tourists in so many years. And I wish I would have learned even more about that witch or that woman that was considered one and why she decided to curse this place. I wanted to see more of her, but nevertheless, I did enjoy the kills, so that was a positive. I did enjoy the kills. The kills are always fun. So the people that work in the island, taking care of the cabins, the cook, the manager, everybody knows about the curse, so they're a little bit scared to be in that island. Like, why would you even go? I guess because you needed money maybe, you know, and that's the only job that you could get. But they are very much aware of the curse, and even when people start disappearing, they don't seem to be too concerned until it is kind of a little bit too late to run. The story was a little bit flat, but it had a quick pacing. It's an easy, quick read. It's nothing super new or fresh or whatever, but it was a fun horror that takes place in a cursed island. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. So I would say, you know, if you want a quick, fast-paced read that takes place in an island, you need it maybe for a readathon like I did, you can give it a go. Lying in the Deep by Diana Urban, and this is a whodunit mystery that takes place on a cruise ship. So basically we follow a bunch of teenagers that are in this cruise because they offer them to spend their semester there. They can go to class there. So it's basically like doing your semester but in a cruise, and you're visiting different countries, and it's really exciting. And so that's where we meet our main character. We follow Jade, and after a really bad year She's really excited for this new semester in the cruise, and she's more excited than anything to leave her old life behind. And that means leaving her ex-boyfriend and ex-best friend behind, especially them. So her best friend stole her boyfriend. That is her theory. In fact, they are together, so her theory might be true. And she's really excited to go on this cruise and forget about them for a while. But when she is in the ship, she sees them. They're there as well. Nowhere to run. You're gonna have to be with them now for the whole semester. So there is a lot of teenage drama between these three characters. And why did you do this? Why did you steal my boyfriend? Why did this happen? You know, you were my best friend, whatever. So there's a lot of teenage jealousy, drama, stuff. And it happens for like 60% of the book. I would say the murder mystery doesn't kick in until later on, so this might be a little bit off-putting maybe for some people that don't like this type of you know, relationship drama and love triangles in a way in their YA books. When the action, let's say, kicks in, when somebody is murdered, it turns like a very classic Agatha Christie whodunit murder mystery. Somebody has been found dead and everybody needs to figure out what happened to them. They are alone in this cruise, so it has to be somebody that is in the ship. It can only be someone that is in the ship, and so they're gonna have to find out who is responsible for it. Especially Jade thinks that she might get the blame, so she's really desperate to find the culprit before everybody says it was her. Overall, I enjoyed it. It was a fast-paced, nice summer read, cozy murder mystery, and even though the setting, which is this cruise ship, was not exploited as much as it could have been, like this could have taken place somewhere else and the story would have still worked, I still had a good time with it. Was it my favorite? No, but it was a good time. Now let's talk about the Kill River books. So as you saw, I uploaded a vlog in which I read Kill River 1, 2, and 3. So I read the complete trilogy during the month of July, which I was dying to read. And I have to say, overall, I had a lot of fun with it. It's exactly what I needed. A slasher that takes place in the summer, and it was not as perfect as I would have hoped it would be for me. Like, I didn't love it as much as I wanted, but honestly, this is a very good and very decent slasher trilogy. In the first book, we follow Cindy, and her parents decide to send her to a summer camp, and Cindy is really pissed about it because she feels like she's already an adult, she's 14, and she doesn't want to go to a summer camp. To make things worse, when she gets into the bus that's gonna take her to the summer camp, she realizes that the majority of the kids in the bus are way younger than she is, and she knows she's gonna hate it. But then she meets Stacy, another girl of her own age, and two other boys, Brad and Zach, that have bro names. And the four of them are the oldest ones in the summer camp, so they stick together and they are really bored. You get to see the summer camp, the activities they do, but they're really bored about it and they want to run away from the camp, and they do, and they find a water park that seems to be like not really abandoned, but nobody's really using it, even though the attractions, you know, the rides are open. And so they decide to have a good time with it, and they go in the rides, and it feels very like summery. They're having fun, you know, water park, until one of them is killed. And so they realize that there is a masked killer on the loose, and they have to run for their lives. They have to survive and escape this water park. The book starts a little bit more kind of slow pace, and I think on the second half it starts to pick up the pacing, and I really did enjoy the part in the water park. That was my favorite part, and I thought the kills were fun, and it did feel like a very much 80s cheesy slasher, nostalgic. So if you're looking for that, this trilogy is gonna be perfect. The second book, though, I think it was my least favorite, but only because you don't get to the action until like 64% of the book, and that was a little bit rough for me. When I'm reading a slasher, I want something to happen earlier than 64%. So at the beginning of the book, you're following teens as they are, going through life, and some of the teenagers work as lifeguards and they're being hired to work at the water park that we got introduced to in book 1. And the water park opens its doors for the first time, and we follow the kids in the water park, and at some point, the masked killer is gonna come back, because they always do. I did enjoy, again, the part in the water park where the killer is loose. Like, that's where I thrive. And the third book was actually a very good and very satisfying resolution to the trilogy, because you get to know a lot more about who is this masked killer, the background of the water park and the place and the history. And so you get all of the questions answered, which is very satisfying when a franchise kind of closes. It needs to give you more information. And also this one, the action starts like 5% into the book. There's already, bam, things happening. And I was like, I was really happy that the pacing was much better for me than book 2. I really enjoyed it. I thought the third one was probably my favorite, and I can not tell you too much about the third book because I don't want to spoil it, but we follow some of the characters that we've been introduced to before in other books, and you see them struggle again to survive this masked killer. Like I said, they always come back. And yeah, if you're looking for a fun slasher with 80s nostalgic vibe that takes place in the summer, I think this trilogy is very decent. Now let's discuss Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. Okay, this was the book pick for my Patreons for the month of July, and I think we picked right. So this was my very first Chuck Tingle book, and I love the writing style. The story is not exactly what I had in mind, which is not a bad thing. This was such a wild roller coaster, and it had so many unexpected elements, and I really had a good time with it. The book merges supernatural horrors with real-life horrors and religion in such a masterful way. There is many quotes from the Bible. There is many things that make this book so good. Like, the writing was one of my favorite parts of this book. I think the writing is chef's kiss, so I really want to read more by Chuck Tingle. I'm definitely gonna be picking up Bury Your Gays. This novel is about a gay conversion camp that is being run by kind of like a Catholic church cult kind of thing. And our main character is somebody that lives with a family that's very strict, very religious, and the whole town is very religious, always go to church, always be a good Christian. And the problem is that our main character is not interested in boys and starts to have feelings for her best friend. Her name is Rose, and she's also autistic, which I really like to see that develop throughout the book. And she's very confused. I mean, she's a teenager, she's going through growing pains, and now she's having these feelings for a girl, and she doesn't like boys, and she doesn't understand what's going on. But to make things even worse, you guys, she starts to see this weird looking woman. She doesn't know if it's a ghost, a product of her imagination, if it's someone real. She doesn't know if she's losing her mind, but she needs answers. The only reason why I didn't give this book a higher rating is because I did not connect with the characters as much as I wanted. I really liked Rose as a main character, and I really liked her journey, but I was not really connecting to her on a more emotional level, and I feel like that's just on me. It just didn't happen for me. But like I said, Chuck's writing is really good, and I think many people are going to love this book. I also think part of why I didn't give it a higher rating is because I was expecting a lot of the book to take place exactly at the conversion camp, where we would see a lot more what kind of techniques and things they're using to offer the 100% success rate in these conversion camps. I wanted to see more of those real life horrors, but I also understand why maybe the author didn't want to focus on the trauma of the gay teens going to this camp, because that is something that it's also very easy to turn into exploitation. And I understand why he did it in a different way, and also it's very original. The way that this book starts, when I started reading it, I thought, huh, that's a very interesting take, a very interesting way of opening, considering the plot. I'm not gonna tell you exactly everything because I want you to experience it yourself, but I think it was such a new and fresh perspective on this plot that we've seen done before. So kudos to him because it was a bold move and I really enjoyed it. I don't want to go into too many details of all of these like Christianity religious things that happened and why is she seeing this woman. Like, I want you to experience it for yourself because I feel like this is also a book that it's easy to spoil for people, but I really liked it. Bad Movie Night by Patrick Lacey, and this was a recommendation by one of my Patreons, Andrea, so thank you for it because I really had a good time with this one. Who does not love a novella, a short, nice read about a cursed movie? I mean, amazing. We follow a group of YouTubers that basically earn their money by reviewing really bad B-horror movies, and they always meet. They have rented like a lot where they meet and they record their videos and they watch the movies, and one day they are getting ready to watch 3 movies that they have on their pile. People send them movies as well for them to review, and so they pick 3 movies, and the last one that day happens to be a movie that is rumored to be cursed and a movie that is really hard to get. So they don't know who sent them the movie, but they are ready to watch it. The movie is called Creepies, and after they watch the movie, things will change, and we follow the aftermath of these guys when they have seen the movie. So it was kind of a mix between The Ring and something else, something more kind of like David Cronenberg-esque of a thing. Not much more that I can tell you because it is a novella, so it is quite short, but if you love stories about cursed movies and you have not seen this one yet and you're a horror nerd, I think you will really enjoy this. Moving on to The Lost Girls by Sonia Hartle, and I didn't expect to love this book as much as I did. Honestly, I thought I was gonna just enjoy it fine, but I found myself loving these characters, which I have come to understand that me connecting with the characters is something that makes me love books more. If I have no connection with the characters, it's very hard for me to give a book also a high rating because I feel like there's something missing. But that is just me as a reader, which is something very personal, and I think because I did connect with this character so much, I ended up loving it a lot more than I had anticipated. We follow Holly, and she is 16 years old, and she's always going to be 16 because she is a vampire. She was turned by a guy, and he promised her, you know, forever love. He promised her eternal love, but then 30 years later, he dumped her. That guy is Elton, a really prick of a vampire. And apparently it's not the first time that he's been doing it. He's been, you know, turning girls when they are really young, being with them for a couple of decades, and then dumping them. Great guy. So a couple of the exes go to find Holly, and they tell her that they are seeking revenge. They want to, you know, get revenge on this guy, and they also want to sever the bond between him and them because these girls need to live closer to where he is because there's always something connecting them to him if they want it or not. It's kind of like this bond that you have with your creator that you have seen in many of these vampire stories. However, let me tell you that even though this book does rely on a couple of tropes when it comes to vampires, it does give it a fresh spin, and there are some things that are very different from your classic, let's say, classic vampire lore, and I really enjoyed to learn about how vampires work in this book. This is a great sapphic vampire tale that merges kind of like revenge, you know, female rage, with finding true love and found family. And about also how much can you impact someone's life by just turning them into a vampire and you're not thinking about the consequences. It reads very modern, very contemporary, and I really had a blast. I also think this book is a little bit on the higher YA spectrum, because the violence, the kills and stuff were a little bit more intense than I had anticipated for a YA book. I didn't even expect maybe many people to die in this book because it sounded like a cutesy revenge story, but let me tell you, it is not. It is not. And I really enjoyed it. So this has been a great book. If you love vampire books, this is one that you probably would like to pick up. I'm gonna briefly mention the 2 audiobooks that I read this month. They are 2 memoirs that were on my to-read list. And with memoirs, the thing is, I don't want to buy them in physical form because I know that I'm not gonna keep them for my collection. And because I saw them on audio, I was like, now is my chance. The first one is A Woman in Me by Britney Spears, and I've been meaning to read this one since it came out because I did grow up with Britney Spears. I still remember clear as day when Baby One More Time came out, and I was obsessed with that video and with that song. And even though I did not follow her complete career, because as I grew older I started to have interest in other types of music, I've always have a soft spot for Britney, and I always felt really bad about the whole you know, conservatorship kind of thing. And I did follow the trial and all of that because that did interest me, and it was really heartbreaking to listen to this book. However, she did not narrate this book herself, and I think it's because it would have been just too much to relive all the trauma again and again. Because when you record an audiobook, obviously you have to read it over and over again. So I think that was too much for her, but the narrator still did a great job, and I would recommend it if you guys are interested to learn more about her story. The other one is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy, another one that I've been meaning to read because I've been really interested in this kind of like child actor industry kind of thing in Hollywood, especially since watching also the documentary Quiet on Set. And it's always intrigued me, you know, how did they handle child actors, especially in the past more than nowadays. And her story was really hard to listen to. It is told by herself. She narrates the book, and her relationship with her mother was very toxic, and I don't think she realized until she was like older, after her mom had passed away and she went to therapy. And it's really hard to listen to at times, and I cannot even imagine having such a childhood. That's like your whole childhood, you know. So it was another one that was really heartbreaking, but I was really interested in the story, and I think you're gonna learn a lot more also about child actors in Hollywood in general if you're interested in the topic as well. So I thought it was a great read. And now let's talk about my favorite of the month, and it could potentially be one of my favorites of 2024. We shall see, because I still have some months left. But that is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. And I've seen many people saying this is a thriller because the cover looks like a thriller. But let me tell you, bestie, this is horror. Just for you to know. And I don't want to go into too much detail when it comes to the story, because this is a book that the less you know when it comes to the story, the better. Trust me. So all I'm going to tell you about the story is that we follow a young couple that flip houses. They buy houses that are, you know, that they need to be renovated, and then they move in, they renovate them, they sell them, they go somewhere else. So they are in the house that they just bought. They're starting the renovations. Somebody knocks on the door, and it's a guy with his family that says, hey, I used to live here. Can I show my kids and my wife the house where I grew up, you know, because this was my childhood home. It will only take a minute. Can we take a look? A little bit hesitant at first, but they let them in, and everything changes when one person disappears. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. But let me tell you, this was such an incredible reading experience. I could not put it down because it's one of those books where you don't know where things are going, but they're going, and you're just, it's a smooth sailing. You need to know what's happening. You're so invested. You are expecting anything. It has some mixed media in between chapters that was fantastic. it was such a good reading experience, honestly. This book is also horrifying because it touches something that we are all scared of, which is strangers inside of our house. But one of the things that this book reminded me to, even though the way it's written has really nothing to do with it, but for some reason it reminded me of House of Leaves, even though they are complete opposite books, but it had that kind of weird flavor to it. The atmosphere is where this book excels. The atmosphere was, the tension. You could cut the tension with a knife. The characters were great, but there were some moments that I cannot talk about. I know I'm teasing. There's some moments that I cannot talk about. That there were some scenes where I was like, you know, when you're just like, because it's so tense and you're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? What's happening? What's this? Loved it. This is a strange psychological horror book, and I didn't know if I was gonna love it or not, but honestly, great reading experience. If you have not picked up this one yet, this is the one. This is the one. This is the best one that I read in July, so I definitely recommend it to you guys. Alright, you guys, so those were all the books that I managed to read during the month of July. I think overall it was a good reading month. I managed to read a lot, even though I've been quite busy, but let me tell you, the bathroom renovations are coming to an end. It's almost finished. I can finally like shower at home. I have a bathtub now. Like what? So I'm really excited about that, not gonna lie. And I hope to read a lot inside of my bathtub during the month of August. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my wrap up. Let me know down below what is the best book that you have read during the month of July. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!